Welcome to the True Haunting Log Podcast. Here, we open the files that the police want to keep closed. We read the logs that were never meant to be seen. Get comfortable. Lock your doors. And whatever you do not look out your window. So I have 30 true horror incident stories to share with you in this podcast that will surely give you some chills. Let's start with the first true story in our podcast. Story 1. The Toy. I felt the cold steel of the knife press against my ribs before I even saw him. The snow under my boots turned red. I didn't care about the money in my wallet. I didn't care about my car. All I could stare at was the plastic doll lying face down in the slush, watching me bleed out. It was December 1996. If you were a parent back then, you remember the madness. There was only one thing every kid wanted: Buzz Lightyear. It sounds silly now, right? A plastic toy. But back then, people were losing their minds. Stores were empty. Parents were fighting in the aisles. And I was desperate. My son, Danny, he was 6 years old. He had a rough year. I promised him. I looked him in the eye and promised him Santa would bring him Buzz. I was failing him. Every store within 50 miles was sold out. Then, I found the ad. It was in the classifieds of the local paper. 2 lines of text. Brand new Buzz Lightyear. In box. $50. Call this number. I didn't wait. I grabbed the phone. A woman answered. She sounded old. Very old, like a grandmother. She told me she bought it for her grandson, but he already had one. She gave me an address. It was on the bad side of town, the crumbling brick apartments near the old rail yard. I should have known better, but I had cash in my pocket, and I had a promise to keep. I drove out there at 8 p.m. It was pitch black. The streetlights were broken. The snow was gray and dirty. I found the house. It wasn't an apartment. It was a small, rotting house squeezed between 2 warehouses. I knocked on the door. Knock, knock. The door opened just a crack. I saw her face. She looked innocent. White hair, glasses. She was holding the box. "Did you bring the money?" she whispered. "Yes," I said. "Yes," I said, "the sebenes of reais we complete of I passed. Here," unquote. I handed her the $50. She handed me the Buzz Lightyear. It was real. It was perfect. I smiled. I turned around to walk back to my car. I was so happy. I was imagining Danny's face on Christmas morning. That's when I heard the whistle. It wasn't the old lady. It came from the alleyway next to the house. A sharp, piercing whistle. I froze. 3 shadows stepped out from the darkness. Teenagers, maybe 19 or 20 years old. They weren't smiling. They were wearing heavy coats, but I saw the glint of metal in the streetlight. Knives. Long, serrated hunting knives. "Nice toy," the middle one said. He didn't want the money. He wanted the box. They knew. The old lady. She wasn't a sweet grandmother. She was the bait. I tried to run. My boots slipped on the ice. I felt the first punch hit my kidney. But it wasn't a punch. It burned. It felt like someone had pressed a hot iron against my back. I fell to my knees. I clutched the toy to my chest. "Please," I choked out. "It's for my son." The kid kicked me in the face. My vision went white. I felt hands ripping the box away from me. I was lying in the slush. I couldn't move my legs. I watched them walk away, laughing. One of them turned back. He looked at me bleeding on the ground. "Merry Christmas," he spat. I don't remember the ambulance. I woke up in the ICU 2 days later. The knife missed my kidney by an inch. But the police told me something that made my blood run cold. When they went to the house, it was empty. No furniture. No old lady. But in the back room, they found a stack of newspapers. And a list. A list of names and phone numbers. I wasn't the first person they lured there. And I probably wasn't the last. You think you are safe inside your car? You think the glass protects you? Wait until you hear what happened in the Oklahoma blizzard. Wait until you hear what was tapping on the window when the car was buried in snow. It was Christmas Eve, 2009. I was 23 years old. I was driving from Tulsa back to my parents' farm in the country. The weatherman called it the blizzard of the decade. He wasn't lying. The snow was coming down so hard I couldn't see the hood of my own car. It was a white wall. My wipers were useless. Swish, swish. They just smeared the ice. I was driving on a back road. No streetlights. No houses. Just miles of barbed wire fences and empty fields. Then, I felt the slide. My back tires lost grip. I tried to correct it, but it was pure ice. The car spun. Once. Twice. Crunch. I slammed into the ditch. The engine died. The headlights flickered and went out. Total darkness. I sat there shaking. My head hurt. I tried to turn the key. Click, click, click. Dead. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Of course. I looked at the clock. 11:30 p.m. The temperature was dropping fast. 5 degrees below zero. I knew I couldn't walk. The nearest house was 10 miles away. I would freeze to death in 20 minutes. So I wrapped myself in my coat, and I waited. About an hour passed. The windows were frosted over. I was shivering so hard my teeth were chattering. Then, I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It was soft, like a finger on the glass. I froze. "Hello?" I yelled. "Please, I need help." I thought it was a farmer, or a cop. I rubbed a circle in the frost on the driver's side window. I pressed my face to the glass. I wished I hadn't. Standing there, right outside my door, was a thing. It looked like a man, standing on two legs. But it was naked. Its skin was pale gray, loose, baggy, like it was wearing a suit made of skin that was 2 sizes too big. It had no hair. And its eyes. Oh God, its eyes. They glowed yellow, like a cat. It wasn't shivering. It was 5 below zero, and it was just standing there, staring at me. Then it smiled. Its mouth opened way too wide. Too many teeth. I locked the door. Click. The creature heard the lock click. Its smile got wider. It raised a long, bony finger and tapped the glass again. Tap, tap, tap. Then it started to walk around the car. I could hear its bare feet crunching on the snow. It moved to the passenger window. Tap, tap, tap. It moved to the back window. Tap, tap, tap. It was playing with me. It knew I couldn't leave. It knew I was trapped in this metal box. For 3 hours, it circled my car. Every time I started to drift off to sleep, tap, tap, tap. It wanted me awake. It wanted me terrified. Finally, around 4 a.m., I saw headlights in the distance. A snowplow. The creature hissed, a sound like steam escaping a pipe. It dropped to all fours, and it ran. It didn't run like a man. It ran like a spider. It vanished into the dark fields. The plow driver pulled me out. He asked me why I was crying. I didn't tell him. But as he was hooking up my car to the tow truck, he shone his flashlight on the snow around my vehicle. He stopped. "Miss," he said, "what were you doing out here? What were you doing out here? What were you doing out here?" "What do you mean?" I asked. He pointed at the ground. "Look at these footprints." I looked. All around my car, in a perfect circle, were human footprints. Bare feet. But they were huge, and they only had 3 toes. They say the woods have eyes, but sometimes the monster isn't a ghost or a creature. Sometimes it's a mother. A mother who wants a child. And she doesn't care if that child belongs to you. Story 3. The Tree. It was supposed to be a tradition. Every year, I took my 7-year-old son Caleb to the National Forest to cut down our own Christmas tree. We had the permit. It was all legal. We drove deep into the fire roads, way out past where the tourists go. It was quiet, peaceful, or so I thought. We found the perfect spruce tree. I was on my knees in the snow, sawing at the trunk. Caleb was playing a few feet away, making snowballs. The saw was loud. That's why I didn't hear the truck pull up. "Hey, it's not Clive's to the 7. I jumped. I stood up, holding the saw. Standing on the road was a beat-up Ford pickup. A man and a woman were standing there. They didn't look like hikers. They looked wrong. The man was huge, silent, just staring at me. The woman was twitchy, nervous energy. "That's our tree," the woman screamed. I looked at the tree, then back at her. "Ma'am, this is public land," I said calmly. "I have a permit." She took a step closer. "You're stealing our Christmas," she yelled. Something felt off. Her eyes weren't looking at the tree. They were looking at Caleb. "Run along, honey," she said to my son. Her voice suddenly turned sweet, sickeningly sweet. "Come here. I have candy in the truck." Caleb froze. He looked at me. "Get behind me, Caleb," I said. I gripped the handle of the saw tighter. The husband started walking toward me. He didn't speak. He just reached into his pocket. "I said," he grunted, "he asked down. Give us what we want." He wasn't talking about the spruce. Suddenly, the woman lunged. She didn't come for me. She sprinted straight for my son. "He's mine," she shrieked. She grabbed Caleb's arm. He screamed. "Let him go," I roared. I swung the saw. I didn't aim for her neck. I aimed for her arm. The metal teeth ripped through her heavy coat. She howled and let go. "Run to the car," I yelled at Caleb. The husband charged me. I scrambled back, falling into the snow. He was on top of me instantly. He smelled like old beer and gasoline. His hands went for my throat. I couldn't breathe. The world started to go black. But then, bang, bang. The weight disappeared. I gasped for air. I looked up. A park ranger was standing there, his pistol drawn. The husband was on the ground, hands up. The woman was trying to crawl away into the woods like a wounded animal. The ranger told me later what he found in their truck. There were no saws, no axes for cutting trees. But in the back seat, there was a child's car seat and a roll of duct tape. They weren't hunting for a tree that day. They were hunting for a son. We trust the people we work with. We share desks. We share jokes. We share food. But do you really know the person sitting in the cubicle next to you? Or are they just waiting for the potluck to watch you die? Story 4. The ingredient. I work in a standard office. Boring. Safe. The biggest drama we usually have is who left the coffee pot empty. Except for Sarah. Sarah was allergic to peanuts. And I don't mean just a little itch. I mean, if she smelled peanut butter, her throat would close up. It was deadly. Everyone knew it. The whole office was a peanut-free zone. Last year, we had the holiday potluck. Everyone brought a dish. Casseroles. Cookies. Chili. Sarah was always careful. She only ate things if she knew exactly who made them. There was a meatloaf on the table. It looked delicious. Wrapped in bacon. Smelled great. There was a little card next to it. Beef and pork meatloaf, no nuts. Sarah took a slice. We were all laughing. talking about our weekend plans. Sarah took one bite. Then, she stopped. Her eyes went wide. She dropped her fork. Clatter. She grabbed her throat. "Sarah?" I asked. She made a horrible sound. A wheezing gasp. Her face turned red, then purple. She fell out of her chair. "EpiPen," someone screamed. I ran to her purse. I dumped it on the floor. I found the pen. I jammed it into her leg. But it wasn't working fast enough. Her lips were blue. The ambulance arrived in 6 minutes. They saved her, but barely. She was in a coma for 3 days. Back at the office, the police arrived. They took the meatloaf. They tested it in a lab. It wasn't an accident. The meatloaf was 50% ground beef and 50% crushed peanuts. Someone had ground them up into a fine powder so you couldn't see them. It was a biological weapon. They traced the dish. It was brought by Brenda. Brenda sat 3 desks away from Sarah. She was a quiet woman, older, always smiled. When the police handcuffed her, she wasn't crying. She was laughing. She chewed too loudly, Brenda said. That was the reason. She tried to kill a woman because she didn't like the sound of her chewing gum. We tell children that Santa comes down the chimney. We tell them to listen for the footsteps on the roof. But in the real world, if you hear footsteps on your roof at 3 a.m., do not look up, because the thing up there is not bringing gifts. Story 5. The Chimney. I live in a suburb where nothing happens. Rows of identical houses. Identical lawns. It was 2 days before Christmas. I was up late, wrapping gifts in the living room. My husband was asleep upstairs. It was quiet, just the sound of the wind. Then, thump. It came from the roof. I froze. Maybe it was a branch? A raccoon? Thump, thump, slide. No. That was heavy. That was footsteps. I walked to the fireplace. Our chimney has a metal flue. If you open it, you can see straight up to the sky. I heard scratching. Someone was at the chimney. I grabbed the fire poker. I slowly leaned into the fireplace and looked up. I expected to see darkness. Instead, I saw a face. A man was looking down at me. He was upside down, and he was wearing a dirty, ripped Santa hat. His skin was gray. His teeth were rotted black stumps. He didn't look human. He looked like a goblin. "Ho, ho, ho," he whispered. His voice sounded wet. I screamed. I stumbled back, falling over the coffee table. Then, something dropped down the chimney. Thud. It landed in the fireplace ashes. It was a Ziploc bag, filled with human hair. I ran to the phone and dialed 911. While I was on the phone, I could hear him. He wasn't climbing down. He was jumping. He leapt from my roof to the neighbor's roof, like a spider. When the police arrived, they didn't catch him, but they found his sleigh. It was an old shopping cart parked in the alley. Inside, they found a list. It wasn't a naughty or nice list. It was a list of addresses. And next to my address, he had written one word: waiting. A gift is supposed to be a sign of affection, but sometimes a gift is a warning. It's a message that says, I am watching you. And if you reject the gift, you reject the giver. And there are some people in this world who do not take rejection lightly. Story 6. The Gift. Stead, the gift. In Flax, we had a secret Santa exchange at my office every year. It was mandatory fun. 8 Japanese. $20 limit. Nothing serious. There was a guy in accounting named Crispin. Crispin was off. He was very quiet. He always wore long-sleeve shirts, even in summer. And if you caught him staring at you, he wouldn't look away. He would just keep staring, unblinking, until you felt sick. We gathered in the break room for the exchange. People opened mugs, gift cards, candles. Then it was my turn. The box was wrapped in black paper. No bow. I opened it. Inside was a framed photograph. I stared at it. My stomach dropped. It was a picture of a woman in a bikini on a beach. But it wasn't a real photo. Someone had taken a picture of my face. A picture they must have stolen from my social media. And they had photoshopped it onto the bikini model's body. It was done poorly. My head was too big for the neck. It looked grotesque. And standing next to me in the photo, with his arm around my waist, was Crispin. He had photoshopped himself into a picture with me as a couple. I looked up. Crispin was sitting across the room. He wasn't looking at the floor. He was staring right at me. And for the first time since I'd known him, he was smiling. A wide, wet smile that showed too many teeth. "Do you like it?" he whispered. The room was silent, so everyone heard him. I felt sick. I stood up, walked to the trash can, and dropped the photo inside. The glass frame shattered. Crash. Crispin's smile vanished. I left work early that day. I was terrified. I walked to my car in the parking garage. It was empty. Echoey. I fumbled with my keys. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Fast footsteps. I turned around. It was Crispin. His face was contorted with rage. His eyes were bulging out of his skull. "You disrespected me," he screamed. He slammed me against the car door. His hands went around my neck. He was screaming incoherently about how much time he spent making it. How we were supposed to be together. I couldn't breathe. The edges of my vision started to go dark. A security guard heard the screaming. He pulled Crispin off me. Crispin didn't fight the guard. He just kept looking at me, gasping for air on the ground. "You can't throw me away," he whispered. "I made you." They fired him. I got a restraining order. But sometimes, when I get a package in the mail with no return address, my hands shake so bad I can't open it. There is nothing purer than charity. Giving toys to children who have nothing. It's supposed to feel good. But there are people out there who hate goodness. People who see innocence and only want to infect it. Story 7. The Donation. I volunteered for a big charity drive. We collected toys for underprivileged kids. My job was to sort through the donation bins in a big warehouse. Most of it was junk. Broken dolls, puzzles with missing pieces. But sometimes you find something good. I was digging through a deep cardboard box. It was filled with stuffed animals. I reached to the bottom to grab a large teddy bear. Sharp pain. I yanked my hand back. A drop of bright red blood welled up on my fingertip. It felt like a bee sting. I thought maybe it was a staple in the box. I leaned over and looked inside. It wasn't a staple. Buried under the teddy bears was a smaller box. It was taped shut, but the tape had ripped. Sticking out of the hole was the orange cap of a syringe. My heart stopped. I carefully opened the box with a pair of scissors. It was full. Dozens and dozens of used medical syringes. Some of them still had dark, dried liquid inside the needles. Some of them had blood on the tips. Someone had donated a box of biohazard waste, disguised as children's toys. I started to panic. I had just been pricked. What was in that needle? HIV? Hepatitis? The warehouse manager called the police and an ambulance. While we waited, the police looked through the rest of the bin. They found the teddy bear I had tried to grab. It was heavy. Too heavy. An officer cut open the back of the bear. The stuffing had been pulled out. Inside the bear was a plastic bag containing a pig's heart. It was rotting. The smell hit us instantly. And next to the heart, a note written in crayon. Merry Sickmas. I spent 6 months getting blood tests. Luckily, I was clean. But I never volunteered again. When I see a donation bin now, I don't see generosity. I see a trap. Mid-roll hook, transition. We all have that one neighbor. The loud one. The annoying one. The one you wish would just move away. But be careful what you wish for. Because if the noise suddenly stops, you might not like the silence that follows. Story 8. Wonderful Christmas Time. His name was Ronnie. He lived in the duplex next to mine. Our walls were paper thin. Ronnie was a miserable drunk, lonely and angry. And starting on December 1st, he played one song on repeat. Paul McCartney's Wonderful Christmas Time. If you know the song, you know how annoying that synthesizer sound is. Wow, now. 24 hours a day. I banged on the wall. He turned it up louder. By Christmas Eve, I was ready to kick his door down. At 11 p.m., the music was vibrating my dishes. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. I snapped. I put on my boots and stomped over to his front door. I was going to threaten to call the cops. I hammered on his door. "Ronnie, open up. Turn that crap down." End quote. I mended half. The door wasn't latched. My knocking pushed it open a few inches. The music was deafening inside. I pushed the door open. The living room was a wreck. Beer cans everywhere. The Christmas tree was knocked over. And there was Ronnie. He was sitting in his recliner, but he wasn't listening to music. His face was a ruin, swollen purple, blood pouring from his nose and mouth. His eyes were swollen shut. He was conscious, but barely. He was tied to the chair with electrical tape. I froze. My brain couldn't process it. Ronnie tried to speak. He coughed up blood. He tilted his head toward the kitchen. "Run," he gurgled. The music stopped. Someone had turned off the stereo in the kitchen. Silence. Then, heavy footsteps on the linoleum floor. A man stepped out of the kitchen. He was wearing a ski mask. He was holding a baseball bat. The bat was wet with red. He didn't run when he saw me. He just stopped. He tilted his head, looking at me through the holes in the mask. "You didn't like the music?" he asked. His voice was calm, flat. "I turned it off for you. Are you happy now?" I didn't wait for him to swing the bat. I ran back to my house and locked every deadbolt I had. By the time the police came, the man was gone. Ronnie survived, but he has brain damage now. He doesn't play music anymore. Now, he just sits in that chair, in silence. And sometimes, I think the silence is worse than the song. We trust our eyes. We trust that when we see someone we love, it is actually them. But there is a phenomenon called the doppelganger. A copy. A mimic. And if you see your own face staring back at you from the darkness, do not say hello. Run. Story 12. The Other Wife. I work the late shift. I get home around 2 a.m. My wife, Clara, is usually asleep. We have a routine. I come in quietly, drink a glass of water, and crawl into bed. Last Tuesday was different. I unlocked the front door. Click. The house was dark, except for the kitchen light. I walked in. Clara was standing at the sink. Her back was to me. She was wearing her favorite blue robe. She was washing dishes. "Hey, honey," I whispered. "Couldn't sleep?" She didn't answer. She just kept scrubbing the same plate. Scrape, scrape, scrape. The movement was jerky, mechanical. I walked closer. "Clara?" She stopped moving. She didn't turn around. "Don't come closer," she said. But it wasn't her voice. It sounded like her, but flat. Like a recording. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text from Clara. "Can you bring up a glass of water when you come up? I'm already in bed." My blood turned to ice. If Clara was in bed upstairs, who was standing at the sink? I looked back at the woman in the kitchen. She slowly turned her head. It was Clara's face. But her eyes were missing. Just smooth skin where the socket should be. And she was smiling so hard her skin was tearing at the corners of her mouth. "I almost had you," the thing whispered. Then the kitchen light bulb exploded. Pop. Darkness. I ran out the front door and sat in my car until the sun came up. When I went back inside, the kitchen was empty. But on the counter, there was a plate. Scrubbed so hard, the ceramic had cracked. The highway at night is a lonely place. Miles of black asphalt. When you have to stop, you look for the lights of a rest stop. You think it's safe because there are vending machines and bathrooms. But you are miles from civilization. And the person in the stall next to you might have been waiting there for days. Story 13. The Gap in the Stall. I was driving cross-country, Ohio to Colorado. It was 3 a.m. I was in the middle of nowhere. Nebraska, I think. I really had to use the bathroom. I saw a sign. Rest area, 1 mile. I pulled off. It was one of those old brick buildings. Flickering orange lights. There were no other cars in the lot. Just me. I walked in. The bathroom smelled like bleach and rot. There were 3 stalls. I went into the middle one and locked the door. It was dead silent. Just the buzzing of the lights. Then, the main door opened. Creak. Heavy footsteps walked in. Boots. I saw the boots stop in front of my stall. I held my breath. Why would they stop right here? There were other stalls open. The boots turned. Now, they were facing my door. I could see them through the gap at the bottom. Dirty, black work boots. Occupied, I said. Trying to sound tough? No answer. Then, the boots moved closer. Right up against the door. And then, a face appeared in the crack of the door. You know that tiny gap between the door and the frame? Someone was pressing their eye against it. Looking right at me. It was a man. His eye was wide. Bloodshot. He started to giggle. A high, wet giggle. He. He reached over the top of the stall door. His hand was covered in sores. He was trying to unlock it. I panicked. I kicked the door as hard as I could. Bam! It hit him in the face. He howled, and in places, in place, and places. I didn't wait. I slammed the door open, knocking him backward. I sprinted to my car. As I peeled out of the parking lot, I looked in my rearview mirror. He was standing in the doorway of the bathroom, just watching me leave. And he was waving. Technology gives us peace of mind. We buy cameras to watch our houses, monitors to hear our babies. We want to make sure they are safe. But sometimes, The camera shows us things we aren't supposed to see. Things that are invisible until you look through the lens. Story 14, The Lullaby. I am a single dad. My daughter, Ellie, is 6 months old. We live alone in a small apartment. Being a new parent makes you paranoid. You check everything. I have a baby monitor on my nightstand. It has a screen so I can see her crib in the other room. It was 1 a.m. I woke up because I heard a sound coming from the monitor. Singing. It was a soft, humming voice. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." I smiled, half asleep. I thought, that's a nice toy. Then I sat up. Ellie doesn't have any toys that sing. And I live alone. I grabbed the monitor and looked at the screen. The camera has night vision, so everything is green and black. I saw Ellie in her crib. She was asleep. But standing next to the crib was a person. A tall, thin shadow. It was leaning over the railing. Its hand was stroking my daughter's hair. "Papa's gonna buy you a mockingbird." The voice came through the speaker. Raspy. Old. I grabbed a baseball bat and ran into the hallway. I kicked the nursery door open. Bang! I flipped on the light switch. The room was empty. Just Ellie, sleeping peacefully. The window was locked. The closet was empty. "I'm losing my mind," I whispered. I checked the room 3 times. Nothing. I went back to my bedroom. I looked at the monitor again. My heart stopped. The figure was still there on the screen. It hadn't moved. It was still standing by the crib. The camera could see it, but my eyes couldn't. Then, the figure on the screen turned its head. It looked directly into the camera lens. It raised a finger to its lips. Shh. Then the monitor went black. We moved out the next morning. The wilderness is beautiful. We go there to escape the noise of the city. But when you are miles away from the nearest road, and you hear a branch snap in the dark, remember this. You are not the apex predator out there. You are the prey. 15. The zipper. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. 15. My girlfriend and I decided to go camping in the deep woods of Oregon. Not a campground. Real camping. We hiked 5 miles off the trail to find a secluded spot by a lake. It was perfect. Until the sun went down. We were sitting by the fire. It was dead quiet. No crickets. No frogs. That usually means a predator is nearby. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered. I listened. Whistle. It sounded like a person whistling a tune. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. But it was coming from high up in the trees. Probably just a bird, I lied. We put out the fire and got into the tent. I zipped the door shut. Z-zip, That sound usually makes me feel safe. A thin layer of nylon between us and the world. I fell asleep holding my hunting knife. I woke up at 3 a.m. I didn't know why. Then I saw it. The moonlight was shining through the tent fabric. There was a silhouette standing right outside the door. It was tall, maybe 7 feet. It wasn't moving. I stopped breathing. Sarah was asleep next to me. I watched the shadow. Slowly, a hand reached down toward the zipper. The fingers were unnaturally long, like twigs. Click. It grabbed the metal tab of the zipper. Zzz. It pulled it down an inch. I gripped my knife. "Hey," I shouted. "I have a weapon." The hand stopped. The shadow didn't run away. It leaned in closer to the fabric. And then, it spoke. But it didn't use its own voice. It used my voice. "Hey," it mimicked perfectly. "I have a weapon." Then it laughed. A dry, clicking laugh. It stood there for an hour, just playing with the zipper. Up, down, up, down. Tormenting us. When the sun finally came up, it was gone. But around our tent, in the mud, there were no footprints, only deep holes, like someone had been walking on stilts. We rely on GPS for everything. Turn left in 500 feet. Turn left in 500 feet. Turn left in 500 feet. We trust the machine blindly. But sometimes, the satellite isn't guiding you to your destination. It's guiding you to a dead end, where someone is waiting to collect. Story 16. Recalculating. 7. Into common. 17 zeros. Of Lottie's. M&S. I drive a truck for a living. Long haul. I was in Nevada. The desert. My regular GPS broke, so I was using an app on my phone. There was a wreck on the main highway, so the app suggested a detour. Save 45 minutes, it said. I took the exit. It was a dirt road. Dust kicking up everywhere. No cell service. I drove for 20 miles. Nothing but cactus and rocks. I started to get nervous. This can't be right, I muttered. Then, I saw a car. An old sedan was parked sideways across the road, blocking the path. The hood was up. Steam was rising. A woman was standing next to it, waving her arms. She looked distressed. I slowed down. It's the trucker's code. You help people. I stopped my rig about 50 feet away. I opened my door and stepped onto the running board. "Do you need help?" I yelled. The woman stopped waving. She dropped her arms to her sides. Her expression changed instantly. From panicked to blank. She didn't answer. She just looked into the bushes on the side of the road and nodded. My gut screamed, "Trap." I jumped back into the cab and locked the door. 3 men burst out of the brush. They were holding machetes. They sprinted toward my truck. I slammed the truck into reverse. I backed up that dirt road going 40 miles an hour. The woman just stood there watching me, smiling. I made it back to the highway. I checked the GPS app again. I looked closely at the detour route. It didn't connect to another road. The blue line just ended, right where that car was parked. Someone had hacked the map data. They were fishing, and I almost took the bait. Antiques carry history. When you buy something from an estate sale, you are buying a piece of someone's life. But sometimes the object is attached to something else, something that doesn't want to leave. And now, you brought it into your home. The painting. I collect weird art. I found it at a garage sale. It was a portrait of a man in a black suit, 19th century style. He had a stern face, dark eyes that seemed to follow you. The seller gave it to me for $5. He looked eager to get rid of it. I hung it in my hallway. That night, my dog, Buster, started growling at it. He wouldn't walk past the hallway. He would just stand there, hackles raised, barking at the painted man. "Quiet, Buster," I said. 3 days later, I came home from work. The painting was crooked. I straightened it. The next day, it was on the floor, face down. The nail was still in the wall. The wire wasn't broken. It had been lifted off. I hung it back up. That night, I woke up to a sound. Scrape, scrape, like canvas rubbing against drywall. I walked into the hallway. The painting was moving. It was vibrating against the wall. But that wasn't the scary part. I looked at the face of the man in the painting. His expression had changed. He wasn't stern anymore. His mouth was open in a scream. And his hands, which were originally folded in his lap, were now pressed against the inside of the frame, like he was trapped behind a glass window. I grabbed the painting. It felt warm, like human skin. I ran to the backyard. I threw it into the fire pit and doused it in lighter fluid. I lit the match. As the canvas burned, I swear I heard a high-pitched shriek coming from the flames. The next morning, I looked at the wall where it had hung. Behind the frame, scratched into the drywall, were fingernail marks. Hundreds of them, trying to claw their way out. There are places on this earth where the sun never shines. Deep underground. Caves are nature's throat. And when you squeeze yourself into those tight, rocky tunnels, you are crawling right into the belly of the beast. And sometimes, the beast decides to swallow. Story 18. The Tight Squeeze. Sex on the smarking NEMC indices. I am a caver, a spelunker. I love the feeling of being underground. Last summer, I explored a new cave system in Kentucky with my buddy Mark. We found a narrow passage. It was a belly crawl. So tight, you have to exhale to push your chest through. "I'll go first," I said. I shimmied into the dark hole. The rock pressed against my back and my stomach. It was cold, wet, My headlamp lit up the limestone ahead. Just darkness. I crawled for about 20 feet. Then the tunnel got tighter. I stopped. "Mark," I called back. "It's getting too tight. I'm turning back." There was no answer. "Mark?" Silence. I figured he was just lagging. I tried to shimmy backward. I couldn't. My boot was caught on something. I kicked my leg. Thump. It wouldn't budge. Then, I felt pressure on my ankle. It wasn't a rock. It was a squeeze. Something had wrapped around my ankle. "Mark, quit joking," I yelled. My voice echoed. The grip got tighter. And then, it pulled. I was dragged forward 6 inches. My chin scraped against the rock. I screamed. I dug my fingers into the dirt. I tried to hold on, but the thing pulling me was strong. It dragged me deeper into the tunnel, deeper into the dark. I heard a sound coming from in front of me. Slurp, slurp. Like saliva. I kicked as hard as I could. My foot connected with something soft, like jelly. The grip loosened. I scrambled backward, tearing my clothes, scraping my skin. I didn't stop until I fell out of the hole and landed next to Mark. "Whoa, you okay?" Mark asked. He was just sitting there, eating a protein bar. "Why did you pull me?" I screamed. "I didn't touch you," he said. "I've been here the whole time." We looked at my ankle. There were bruises. 5 distinct finger marks. But they were too long, and they had suction cup marks on the skin. Whatever was in that hole wasn't a rock. It was feeding. Schools are noisy places, filled with life, laughter, running footsteps. But at night, when the bell has rung and the lights go out, the energy remains. And if you are the janitor working the graveyard shift, you know that the school is never truly empty. 20 Story 19. The gym teacher. I work night sanitation at a high school. It's a creepy job. Long hallways. Lockers that slam shut by themselves. But the worst place is the gymnasium. It was 2 a.m. I was mopping the basketball court. The only light came from the emergency exit signs. A dim red glow. Squeak, squeak. The sound of my mop. Then, boom. A loud echo. I stopped. It sounded like a basketball hitting the floor. I looked across the court. The ball rack was full. Nothing was moving. I went back to mopping. Boom, boom, boom. It was rhythmic now. Dribbling. Someone was dribbling a ball at the far end of the gym. In the shadows under the bleachers. "Hello?" I called out. "School's closed. Get out." The dribbling stopped. Silence. Then, I heard the whistle. A sharp coach's whistle. Tweet. "Laps," a voice shouted. It was a deep, angry voice. And then, the sound of running feet. Dozens of them. Sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. Squeak, 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 squeak. They were rushing toward me. An invisible stampede. I could feel the wind of them passing me. My mop bucket got kicked over. Clang. Water spilled everywhere. I ran to the light switch and flipped the breakers. The overhead lights buzzed on. The gym was empty. No kids. No coach. No ball. But on the freshly mopped floor, there were footprints. Hundreds of black scuff marks from sneakers. Running in a perfect circle. And in the center of the circle, written in the water I had spilled, was one word. Faster. We look in the mirror every day. To brush our teeth. To fix our hair. We trust that the person looking back is us. But physics says that light takes time to travel. So your reflection is always a fraction of a second in the past. But what happens when your reflection gets tired of waiting and decides to move first? The delay, X-plan, the delay, X-plan, the delay, X-plan, 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 X-plan. I was staying at an Airbnb in Chicago. It was a nice apartment. Modern. There was a huge mirror in the bathroom. Wall to wall. I was getting ready for bed. Brushing my teeth. I leaned in close to the glass to check a spot on my face. I blinked. And for a split second, the reflection didn't blink. I froze. I'm just tired, I told myself. I washed my face. I looked up again. I tilted my head to the right. The reflection tilted its head to the right. But it was slow. Like a video buffering. A tiny lag. I started to panic. I waved my hand. The reflection waved back. Half a second later. This wasn't a trick of the light. The thing in the mirror was copying me. And it was getting lazy. I backed away slowly. The reflection stayed close to the glass. It didn't back away. It just stood there, looking at me. Then, it smiled. I wasn't smiling. It raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. From the inside, I ran out of the bathroom and slammed the door. I heard a sound from inside. Knock, knock, knock. On the glass. I packed my bags in 30 seconds and left. I left a review for the host. Great location. Haunted bathroom. The host replied the next day. What mirror? There is no mirror in the bathroom. It's just a window that looks into the alley. We invite technology into our bedrooms. Smart speakers, smart cameras, smart locks. We think they work for us. But have you ever wondered, who are they actually talking to when you are asleep? And what happens when the artificial intelligence decides it doesn't want to follow your commands anymore? Story 21. Blue Ring. I bought one of those smart speakers. You know the one. You say its name, and the blue ring lights up. I put it in the kitchen. It was useful. Set a timer. Set a timer. Play music. Play music. But then, it started acting weird. It was 3 a.m. I was in bed, upstairs. I heard a noise downstairs. Laughter. Not a recording. It sounded like a woman laughing in my kitchen. I grabbed a bat and went down. The kitchen was empty. But the smart speaker, the blue ring was spinning. It was active. Stop, I said. The ring turned off. I checked the app on my phone. The app keeps a log of everything it hears. I scrolled to 3 a.m. There was a recording. I pressed play. Static. And then, my own voice. But I was asleep when this happened. The voice on the recording whispered, "He is coming down the stairs now." And then, the woman's laugh. I unplugged it. I threw it in the trash can outside. I went back to bed. I was just drifting off to sleep when I heard it. From the living room. "I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. If you have someone, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that." I froze. I don't have a speaker in the living room. I walked out. My TV was on. It was a smart TV. And on the screen, in big white letters, "Listening." And then, the front door smart lock clicked open. Hotels are strange places. Thousands of people sleep in that same bed before you. You lock the door to the hallway, but you forget about the other door, the one that connects to the room next door. You trust that it's locked from the other side. But what if the person in room 204 has a key? The adjoining door. The adjoining door. I was on a business trip. Cheap motel off the interstate. I checked into room 203. It was standard. Smell of stale cigarettes and lemon cleaner. There was an adjoining door. You know, those double doors that let you combine two rooms? I checked the handle. Locked. Solid. I went to sleep around midnight. I woke up to a sound. Click. It was the sound of a deadbolt turning. I sat up in the dark. The sound came from the adjoining door. Someone in room 204 had unlocked their side. I watched the handle on my side. Slowly, silently, the brass handle began to turn. They were trying to open my door, but my side was still locked. The handle hit the stop. Thunk. Then it released. Then it turned again. Thunk. "Hey," I yelled. Wrong room. The handle stopped moving. Silence. Then, a voice came through the crack. "No," the voice whispered. "Right room." I grabbed the phone to call the front desk. Deadline. Then I saw it. Under the door. A long metal wire was sliding through the gap at the bottom. It had a hook on the end. They were trying to hook the handle from the inside and pull it open. I jumped out of bed and stomped on the wire. The person on the other side yanked it back hard. I heard cursing. Then, heavy pounding on the door. Bam, bam, bam. "Let me in. Mama sins. Let me in." I shoved the dresser in front of the door. I waited there until morning with a lamp in my hand. When I left the room at sunrise, the door to room 204 was open. I looked inside. It was empty. No luggage. No bed. Just a chair, placed right in front of the adjoining door. Someone had been sitting there all night, waiting. We love our pets. We give them freedom. We install dog doors so they can go outside whenever they want. But a hole in your door is a hole in your security. It's an invitation. And if your dog is barking at the door flap in the middle of the night, don't check it. 23. The Flap. I have a Great Dane. His name is Duke. Because he's huge, I had to install an extra-large dog door in the back of the house. It's big enough for a human to crawl through. But I wasn't worried. Duke is 150 pounds of muscle. No burglar would mess with him. It was raining. A thunderstorm. I was in the kitchen getting water. Duke was standing by the back door. He was growling. Not his normal growl. This was low. Guttural. The hair on his back was standing up. "What is it, boy?" I asked. He backed away from the door. Duke never backs away. I looked at the plastic flap of the dog door. It was swinging slightly in the wind. Flap, flap. Then, it pushed open. I expected a raccoon, or a stray cat. A hand slowly reached through the opening. A pale, dirty human hand. It felt around the floor, patting the rug. Then a second hand came through. Then a head. A man was crawling halfway into my kitchen. He was soaking wet. He looked up at me. His eyes were black, dilated pupils. He didn't look scared that I was standing there. He smiled. "Is the dog hungry?" he whispered. I grabbed a knife from the counter. "Get out," I screamed. He didn't move. He started to crawl further in. His shoulders got stuck. He started laughing, a maniacal giggle. He was stuck in my door, laughing at me, while my dog cowered in the corner. I called the police. It took them 10 minutes to get there. For 10 minutes, I stood there with a knife, while this man wiggled and laughed. He kept reaching for my ankles, snapping his fingers. When the cops dragged him out, they found a bag in his pocket. It was full of raw steak, laced with rat poison. He came for the dog first. I was next. We walked past them every day in the mall. Mannequins. They stand there, freezing in their perfect poses, staring at nothing. But have you ever touched one? They are supposed to be cold plastic. So, if you brush against a mannequin, and it feels warm, don't turn around. Just run. Story 24, The Night Watch. I worked security at an old department store that was shutting down. It was a huge building, 4 floors. Most of the stock was gone, but the fixtures were still there, including the mannequins. Dozens of them. Naked, bald, white plastic. They were clustered together in the center of the 3rd floor. My job was to walk the floors once an hour. I hated the 3rd floor. Every time I walked past that group of mannequins, I felt like their heads were turning. But they never moved. Of course not. It was 2 a.m. on my last shift. I walked past the group. There were 10 of them. I did my rounds on the 4th floor and came back down. I looked at the group again. There were 11. I stopped. I shined my flashlight. I counted again. 1, 2, 3. 11. One of them had joined the group. It was standing slightly behind the others. Its head was tilted down. "Very funny, Dave," I yelled. I thought it was the other guard playing a prank. I walked up to the new mannequin. It looked identical to the others. White skin, no face features. I reached out to knock on its chest, to hear the hollow plastic sound. My knuckles hit the chest. Thud. It didn't sound hollow. It sounded wet, like hitting a sack of meat. And the skin, it wasn't hard plastic. It yielded under my touch. It was soft. And it was warm. I pulled my hand back. The mannequin slowly lifted its head. Where the face should have been blank, 2 eyelids snapped open. Underneath was just raw muscle. It inhaled. A long, rattling breath. I ran to the elevator. I mashed the button. As the doors were closing, I saw the group of mannequins. They had all turned around. They were all facing the elevator. And the one in the back was waving goodbye. We are taught not to get into cars with strangers. But now we have apps for that. We summon a stranger to pick us up. We check the license plate. We check the car model. But do you check the door locks? Because once you get in, you are just cargo. Your ride is here. Ride is here. It was raining hard in Seattle. I ordered a rideshare to get home from the bar. The app said, Toyota Camry, silver, driver, Michael. 2 minutes later, a silver Camry pulled up. I was cold and wet. I opened the back door and jumped in. "For Sarah?" the driver asked. "Yeah, thanks," I said. He was wearing a baseball cap pulled low. He started driving. He didn't have a phone mounted on the dashboard. That was weird. Usually, they have the GPS running. "Do you know the way?" I asked. "I know a shortcut," he mumbled. We drove for about 5 minutes. He turned off the main road, into an industrial area. "Hey, where are we going?" I asked. He didn't answer. He reached down and clicked a button on his door panel. Clunk. The door locks engaged. Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A notification from the ride app. Your driver, Michael, is canceling the trip. He could not find you. My heart stopped. If Michael was canceling, then who was driving this car? I looked at the back of the driver's head. Let me out, I said. My voice shook. He sped up. You're Sarah, he said. I came for Sarah. He wasn't an Uber driver. He was a predator who bought a silver Camry just to patrol the bars. He guessed my name because he heard me say it to the bouncer outside. We were coming up to a red light. He didn't look like he was going to stop. I did the only thing I could think of. I took off my high-heeled shoe. I swung it as hard as I could at the side of his head. The sharp heel dug into his ear. He screamed and swerved. The car slammed into a parked truck. Crash. I crawled out of the shattered window. I ran until I found a gas station. The police never found him. He ran away into the rail yard. But now, I drive myself. Even if I've had a drink, I'll sleep in my car before I get in with a stranger again. Farmers put up scarecrows to frighten the birds. They make them look like humans. Old clothes, a hat, straw. But sometimes, the birds aren't scared. Sometimes, the birds stay away because they know something we don't. They know that the thing on the pole is hungry. The harvestor, the harvest, anywen, hisaus, NDS, NDS, anywen, NDS, NDS. I grew up on a corn farm in Nebraska. It's a lonely life. Just an ocean of green stalks. My dad built a scarecrow. It was ugly. He used a burlap sack for the head and painted a crooked smile on it. He put it on the south hill. One evening, I was sitting on the porch. The sun was setting. I looked at the hill. The scarecrow was gone. Dad must have taken it down, I thought. Then I looked closer at the cornfield. About 50 yards closer to the house, I saw the hat. It was standing in the middle of the rows. The next day, it was closer. Right at the edge of the yard. It was facing the house. Its painted smile looked wider. I told my dad. "Stop messing with the scarecrow, boy," he yelled at me. He thought I was moving it. That night, a storm rolled in. Thunder shook the house. I woke up at midnight. I heard a scratching sound on the front porch. Scrape, thump, scrape, thump. I walked to the front door and looked through the peephole. Lightning flashed. Standing on the porch was the scarecrow. But it wasn't stuffed with straw anymore. I could see ribs pressing against the flannel shirt. I could see bone. The burlap sack was wet. And where the painted eyes used to be, there were holes. And inside the holes, something was moving. Maggots. It raised a hand. It wasn't a stick. It was a gray, rotting human hand. It reached for the doorknob. I grabbed my dad's shotgun from the cabinet. I didn't hesitate. I fired through the door. Boom. A scream tore through the night. It sounded like a pig being slaughtered. When we opened the door the next morning, there was nothing there. Just a pile of old straw and a trail of black, tar-like blood leading back into the corn. We burned the field that year. We didn't harvest a single ear of corn. Hide and seek. It is the oldest game in the world. The rules are simple. Stay quiet. Don't move. Don't let them find you. But sometimes, you pick a hiding spot that is already occupied. And the thing sitting in the dark with you wants to play a different game. Thatcher now. Ollie oxen free. I was 10 years old. We were playing hide and seek in my grandmother's massive old house. It was the best house for it. 3 stories. Dust covers on the furniture. It was my turn to hide. I wanted to win. I found a small door under the main staircase. Not the closet, but a tiny panel behind the coats. I squeezed inside. It was pitch black. It smelled like dry rot and mothballs. I crawled back as far as I could behind a stack of old boxes. I sat there, holding my breath. I could hear my cousins running around outside. Ready or not, here I come. 10 minutes passed. They couldn't find me. I was grinning. Then, I felt a breath on the back of my neck. It was cold and wet. I froze. I thought it was a draft. Then, a hand touched my shoulder. It came from the darkness behind me. I thought it was my cousin trying to scare me. "You found me," I whispered. The hand didn't let go. It tightened. The fingers were long and bony. The nails dug into my skin. A voice whispered in my ear. It sounded like dry leaves scraping together. "I've been hiding here for a long time. What am I now, 5, 14-0. I screamed. I scrambled forward, knocking over the boxes. I burst out of the panel and tumbled into the hallway. My grandmother came running. "What is it? What happened?" I pointed at the hole. "There's a man in there." My uncle got a flashlight and a baseball bat. He crawled in. He searched the whole crawl space. "There's nobody here, kiddo," he said. But then he shone the light on the back wall. There was a small mattress, old candy wrappers, and scratched into the wood, right where I had been sitting, were the words, "Nice hair." Someone had been living in the walls, and he had been touching my hair while I waited. We see hitchhikers on the side of the road. Thumbs out, looking for a ride. Most of us drive past. We know it's dangerous. But what if the hitchhiker isn't asking for a ride? What if they are just standing there, miles from any town, waiting for you to slow down? Story 28, The Smiling Man. 7 Ds, 5 Ds. I was driving home from college. 2 a.m. Empty highway. I was tired, blinking hard to stay awake. My headlights caught something on the shoulder of the road. A man. He was wearing a suit, an old-fashioned yellow suit. He was walking, but he was walking strangely. His knees were lifting up way too high, like a cartoon character sneaking around, and his head was tilted back, looking straight up at the sky. I drove past him. I looked in my rearview mirror. He had stopped. He was watching my car, and he was smiling. A huge, impossible smile. I shivered and kept driving. 5 miles later, I saw him again. The same man, the same yellow suit. He was standing further up the road. How did he get ahead of me? I was doing 60 miles an hour. This time, he wasn't walking. He was bent over at the waist, waving at me. I slammed on the gas. Just a hallucination, I told myself. Understand of the problem. In tells you. Also tells you are tells you. I told myself. I'm tired. 10 miles later, there he was, standing in the middle of my lane, facing me. I slammed on the brakes. Screech. My car stopped 20 feet from him. He stood up straight. He was tall, lanky. He started to run toward my car, but he didn't run like a human. He ran on all fours, like a spider, his limbs flailing wildly. He was fast. I threw the car into reverse. I backed up, spun the car around, and drove the wrong way down the highway. I saw him in my headlights one last time. He was still chasing me, and he was laughing, but no sound was coming out. Renovating a house is exciting. Tearing down old walls, pulling up carpet. You get to see the bones of the house. But sometimes, you find things that the builders tried to hide. A room that isn't on the blueprints. A door that has been nailed shut from the outside. There is a reason they sealed it, and you just broke the seal. The brick room. The brick room. My wife and I bought a Victorian house in Ohio. It needed work. We started in the basement. I was tearing down some old drywall. Behind the drywall, I found a brick wall. That was normal. But this brick looked different. It was newer than the foundation, and it was hollow. I took a sledgehammer. Crash. I knocked a hole in the bricks. A smell hit me instantly. Copper, like old pennies, and sulfur. I shone my flashlight into the hole. It was a room, about 8 feet by 8 feet. No windows, no doors. Just a sealed box. In the center of the room was a single wooden chair, and sitting on the chair was a doll. It was an antique porcelain doll. Cracked face, missing one eye. But looking at it made me feel sick, nauseous. I told my wife. She said, "Let's get it out of there." On 17. I climbed through the hole. The air was heavy, hard to breathe. I reached for the doll. As soon as my fingers touched the porcelain, the light bulb in the main basement burst. Total darkness. Then, the chair scraped against the floor. The doll hadn't moved. but the chair had slid 6 inches closer to me. I scrambled back out of the hole. I grabbed a bag of concrete mix and I sealed that hole back up. We put the drywall back. We put a heavy bookshelf in front of it. But sometimes, late at night, if you put your ear against that bookshelf, you can hear a sound. Rock, rock, rock. The sound of a wooden chair rocking back and forth in the dark. This is the final log. We have talked about monsters in the woods, ghosts in the machine, killers on the road. But the scariest story is the one that hasn't happened to you yet. You are listening to this in the dark. Maybe you are in bed. Maybe you are driving. You feel safe. But remember, every person in these stories felt safe too. Right up until the moment they heard the glass break. Story 30. The Cabin at Blackwood. Stoddard 77/77. Stoddard 77/77. Stoddard 77/77. I needed a break. Stress at work. Bad breakup. I rented a cabin in the Blackwood Forest. It was off the grid. No internet. No neighbors for 10 miles. Just what I wanted. I arrived on a Friday. The cabin was rustic. Heavy logs. Stone fireplace. It was beautiful. But the first night, things got weird. I was reading by the fire. It was windy outside. Branches scraping against the roof. Then, I heard a heavy thud on the porch. Thump. Like someone dropping a sack of potatoes. I waited. I grabbed the fireplace poker and went to the door. I flipped on the porch light. Nothing. Just the empty wooden deck. Just a raccoon, I told myself. I went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. I kept feeling like I was being watched. The cabin had big windows. No curtains. During the day, it was a great view. At night, it was like being in a fishbowl. The second night, I was cooking dinner. I looked out the kitchen window into the tree line. It was pitch black. But then, a camera flash went off. Flash. A bright burst of white light from the woods. It blinded me for a second. Someone was out there taking a picture of me. I dropped my pan. I ran to the living room and locked the deadbolt. I turned off all the lights. I peeked out the window. Flash. Another one? Closer this time. They were moving toward the house. I didn't have a gun. Just that poker. I hid in the bathroom. It was the only room with no windows. I sat in the bathtub with the poker in my hand. I waited. Hours passed. Then, I heard the front door handle jiggle. Rattle, rattle. Locked. Then footsteps on the porch. Heavy boots. They walked around to the side of the house. To the bathroom window. A light shone through the frosted glass. A flashlight beam. It swept across the room. I held my breath. A voice spoke from outside. "I know you're in the tub," the voice said. It was calm. Friendly. You look scared. Smile for the camera. Display. At a very bored. Display. I didn't move. I heard a scratching sound on the glass. The tip of a knife, carving something into the window pane. Then, the footsteps walked away. I heard an engine start, a truck driving off. I didn't leave the bathroom until sunrise. When I went outside, I looked at the bathroom window. Carved into the glass were the words, "See you soon." I packed my car. As I was leaving, I checked the mailbox at the end of the driveway. Inside was a Polaroid photo. It was a picture of me sleeping in my bed, taken from inside the room. The night before, I heard the noise. He had been inside the cabin with me the whole time. These are the logs. These are the stories that the shadows whisper when you turn out the lights. We have reached the end of this recording, but the horror does not stop here. Do you have a story? Have you seen something in the woods that shouldn't be there? Have you heard a voice call your name in an empty house? Do not keep it to yourself. We want to read your log. Email your story to truehauntinglog@gmail.com. Follow the instructions. Be detailed. Be honest. And maybe, just maybe, your nightmare will be the next one we share. Thank you for listening to the True Haunting Log podcast. If you survived this long, make sure to subscribe. Until next time, check your locks, check your windows, and remember, you are never truly alone.